Okay, welcome back to the show. This is Common Denominator. This topic, it's an important, very important topic, and it's called learning to appreciate and love African features. Why why is this important? Why am I talking about this? Um this is very important because as a part of my platform, I talk about African American dysfunction. And one of the most common occurrences of dysfunction and abnormality that I see in the African American community is self-hate. I'm going to point it out. I'm going to point out what I see as the causes of this, and I'm going to point out what I see as a solution, or one of the solutions. And if you disagree with me, that's fine. Just leave your comments below. I'm open to discussion. I'm open to other people's ideas. And if you are polite and you come at me in a respectful manner, I will definitely engage you. So learning to appreciate and love African features. It sounds right off the bat for some people, for some African Americans, it might sound like an impossibility. It may sound like something far-fetched, or even within the realm of fantasy. Just something that's just so unreal and so far removed from reality. But should it be? Should it be something that is so far removed from reality that I even have to discuss it in this way? And the fact that I'm bringing it, and that others around the world are also discussing this same topic, this same theme of black inferiority complexes and the self-hate which permeates plenty of African societies, both in the Caribbean as well as on the continent, and as well as here in America. There's no doubt that we are suffering from a bombardment of imagery that comes from the mainstream, and it comes from the status quo and within the country at large, not just within the black community, but the status quo within America at large. I see America as a beacon of influence around the world that's able to influence beauty, and a lot of it goes back to media. I talk a lot about media because media is very important. Media has the ability to shape opinions, culture, everything. It can change the world, literally, media. So we live in a country with a media slant, and the slant is toward people who look like them. People who look like the majority in this country. The people who make up the majority in power as well as the majority in number. The media is slanted towards them. And it should be, because they are the majority. That's how it should be. It would be weird for them to be the majority in power and the majority in number, and to have images of other people plastered across the TV, 99% other people plastered across the TV screen and across movies that didn't represent them and their culture. It just wouldn't make any sense. It would be strange. Imagine a black country or a black TV station putting images of only Asian people. Does that make any sense? So the majority of the media in America is slanted towards the majority in power and the majority in number. And that would be towards white Americans. What I want to talk about is how the media, really quickly, I want to show a few examples of how the media influences, how American media is able to influence foreign cultures and people that live within the country. The first thing I'm going to show is I'm going to take you to an article here with the New York Times. And it says, study finds TV alters Fiji girls' view of body. It should be Fijian. Okay, people from Fiji. And what they found is that the women in Fiji basically started watching American broadcasting. And as a result, eating disorders went up because now they didn't feel good enough. They felt as if they needed to lose weight. Okay, so this is an example of how media can influence people in terms of body image. Okay, so that's in the Pacific Islands. That's Fiji. Okay, so if your goal is to create insecurities in another race of people, just broadcast media from another country, especially a country that's powerful economically, militarily. Okay, broadcast media from those countries, or you could even broadcast, it really doesn't matter, but if you just put people in the media, which has contextually, it has the image of being importance, the semblance of importance. Anything on TV is viewed as important because people will tune in to watch it. So even if it's another race that isn't necessarily in power or in the majority, but it's another race, I believe if you were to continually put them on TV, they would then be, people would then be classically conditioned to seeing them as being important. Okay, so as a result of the media images being broadcast from America, beauty standards around the world have been altered to fit what's being shown in the media here in America. A good example of this, let me go to a story that I found out about. I think I found out about it through CNN International. It was talking about the country of Lebanon. And here we have some Lebanese women who were having nose surgery. Okay, everyone was having what's called a rhinoplasty or nose surgery, nose jobs, because they didn't like the little arch that was in their noses, that was on their nose, that represented their nose and represented their ethnicities. They found it to be too ethnic. But the interesting thing is that this is what your culture is, and this is how you identify who a person is and where they're from, is by their ethnic markers. So what was happening is that these women were having nose jobs done at a record rate, and it's like the majority of the women in the country. And what was happening was it became a status symbol. And women were actually showing the bandages, the post-operative bandages on their noses, on the bridge of their nose, to show that they had the surgery done. And sometimes they would wear the bandage longer than they were required to, just to show that they had the surgery done. And it's become a status, a symbol of status. But this sort of racial, ethnic erasure or deracialization is a direct result of popular media and beauty standards from other countries, and in this case, the United States, and most likely the United States primarily, and Europe. All right, so what does all this have to do with African features? Well, I'm getting to it. We also have, there are examples of. I've heard about women in Japan having starting off, doing surgery on their eyes and making their eyes bigger. But not just that. I heard a story where I read a story actually about a waitress who found a cheap way to make her eyes seem bigger, because the girls with the bigger eyes or who had the double eyelid were getting more attention from the guys. Okay. And she used a type of glue on her eyelid, on her single eyelid, and it had the effect of making her eyes bigger, so that she achieved a standard of beauty that wasn't native to her Japan. We also have the problem in India. India has an issue with skin whitening or skin bleaching. And here's the BBC presenting an article on this. Has skin whitening in India gone too far? And personally, I've done a lot of research on this, and it's gotten to the point now where there's internal racism. Well, there always has been. There always has been a caste system. But if you can believe it, it's gotten worse. And the skin bleaching, the sale of these products, I think there's a product called Fair and Lovely. It's off the charts. It's literally off the charts. And it has damaged the psyches of millions of women and men in the country, just because they want to be like who their former oppressors were and who their current oppressors are in, the world governing bodies. Okay, so their former oppressors were the British, who colonized them. So yeah, so this is another result of beauty standards from outside the country affecting them. African features. We know that based on history and now, there are certain African features that were made fun of by Europeans. And a lot of those features are lips. People used to make fun of, and probably still do make fun of, big African butts. And they make fun of African hair. And anything that's different from them, really. It's really a childish sort of elementary, junior high sort of form of bullying. But it's just that, they don't see it beautiful, and they want to make fun of it because it's different. So the interesting thing is, here's the interesting thing. Now that full lips and a bigger butt are actually in, and people are now gravitating towards those two things, and we can see that evidenced in Botox surgery, injections in the lips, butt surgery, which is also being done by black women and other women. They just want it to be bigger now because they feel like they have more competition. The obsession with the gym, the obsession with the squat rack, and then the overall obsession with the booty by white women and women who tend to genetically not be gifted like that in that area. So now there's all sorts of insecurities being placed on white women as a result. And this is a result of media. Black people have always been here in the country, but they never cared to have the full lips and the big butt. But as soon as we're in the media, which the TV screen has a way of making everything seem more important and more lovely and more beautiful. But now that you're in popular media, things change. And now who has the insecurities? Okay, so we can see a lot of these insecurities being placed in the minds of those who are technically in the majority in power and the majority in number, and who have held the power of over the media in terms of creating and enforcing beauty standards. But now that others have access to the media and are able to showcase their beauty standards, look at what's happened. Look at how the tables have turned. Now everyone is about getting a bigger butt. Okay, so this is how it works. It's the media. The media creates and takes away imagery and creates culture and creates beauty standards. You know, it's all about advertising. And this is why I focus so much on media. This is why I talk about hip hop videos and talk about the damage it's causing and how these things need to be changed and the lyrics and things like that. So this is the power of the media. Now what I want to do is talk about unfair comparisons. I want to talk about unfair comparisons because it's unfair for a person of another race to judge someone of a different race who has completely different or of a different ethnicity based on their criteria. It just doesn't make any sense. It's not only unfair, it's illogical for one to consider even doing something so foolish. So this is what's been going on. The world has been subject to beauty standards from one group who control the cameras, who control the media. And as a result, the world has been suffering. But now that the world has cameras and media, and now that media has become cheap, now that we have social media, we can start to see the tide turning. Okay, we can see beauty standards of different races now being pushed to the forefront. And this is good because this is more fair and balanced. And this is how it should be. I personally think that there's beauty in all races, okay, and that all of these races were created by God, the God of heaven, and we were designed to be this way. I don't believe in these evolutionary arguments that say because of weather and different events. Weather doesn't create kinky hair. Because if it did, the Indians who live in South India in hot weather would have kinky hair also. Weather doesn't create certain bone structure. Because if they did, they would have a certain bone structure that's more similar to Africans. But theirs is more similar to, according to anthropologists, to Caucasians. So those arguments are really, really foolish. Because India is extremely hot, okay, especially in the south of India. So I believe in there's diversity within creation, just like in nature. There's diversity, and the diversity is beautiful, and there is no one standard. Not even within the African races or ethnic groups. There is no one standard. A person from Rwanda couldn't and shouldn't compare themselves to a person from the Congo or Nigeria, because there's different elements of beauty within those groups. But I think those groups, there's certain elements of beauty that rise to the top within those groups, and it's healthy to celebrate that beauty and that diversity. But unfortunately, things like, even though I enjoy watching them, things like the Miss Universe competition and these competitions, I enjoy watching them. But the truth is they're biased. You cannot possibly tell me that a few people who are most likely Western are going to judge all of these women fairly. There's implicit bias in everyone. And I think a better way would be, I just think that's a bad idea. Even though it's nice to see, I just think it creates inferiority complexes and insecurities in people around the world if their country never wins. And in addition to that, I think they're highly politicized as well. All right. So let me continue. Let me talk about my experience now being overseas. I lived overseas for about 8 years, and while overseas, I was in a country that was pretty much homogenous, and it took me some time in the beginning before I could see the beauty in the people that were there. The people that made up the country. I just didn't think they were anything special. I just thought, they were just people. I didn't see the beauty in them. I wasn't interested. But after some time, my eyes, my taste, things adjusted, and I began to see the beauty in them. And I realized and I recognized that they're beautiful people. And as I began to travel and spend time in different countries, I realized that there are beautiful people in every single country. People are beautiful. And it's so foolish for us to use a standard from another race to try to apply it to other people. That's just crazy. All that does is create insecurities, and it creates markets for companies to play on those insecurities, skin bleaching cream, surgeries, etc. I had a friend who I remember when he first came. I might have told this story before. For those who are listening for the first time to my channel, you'll hear this story for the first time, obviously. He had just come. He was a Puerto Rican. He came to the country I was living in. And at first, he like me, he didn't find the women beautiful. It took him 2 weeks. 2 weeks, and he was pretty much obsessed. And I'm going to show you a picture of what he found beautiful. This woman right here. Okay, so he fell in love with a woman named Lee Hyori, a pop star from Korea. And the interesting thing is that she has had numerous surgeries. Okay, I'll show you this, but this isn't how she looked before. Her eyes have had surgery. Her nose has been altered. So this isn't what they look like. But she's still beautiful, but this isn't how they look naturally, okay? She's been surgically altered. But anyway, he fell in love with her. And he was successfully acculturated. Okay, so he was brought into the culture. He was brought into the beauty standards. These are the beauty standards, whether it's post-surgical or not. These are the standards of their beauty. I was able to find beauty in the country that was not post-surgical, just natural beauty. I wanted to see natural beauty, and it's hard to find because so many people have had surgery. I think 70% of the women have had surgery on their eyes to make them bigger like this. So it was really tough to find people who aren't surgically altered. So it took some time. I was struggling to know what a person looked like who hadn't had surgery. I was confused for a long time, and I had to be taught. So now I want to get down to the meat of it, the acculturation, or learning to appreciate and love African cultures. How did this happen? Well, like most Americans, Black Americans who were raised in America, obviously, there's a brainwashing. You see what's in American media, and you get brainwashed. You tend to think that those are the standards of beauty. But let me tell you what's happened to me recently. I no longer see the beauty that's put forward on TV necessarily as beautiful like I did before. I still see some beauty, but not everything that they put out there to me is beautiful. And what happened was I started intentionally seeking out African media. I wanted to see what 100% African looked like. I wanted to see what African beauty at its purest looked like. So I went to Instagram, I went to YouTube, I went across the web, and I started finding different images of beauty. And I have my favorite countries in Africa. I tend to like Nigeria. I like Ethiopia. I like Rwanda. I like Kenya. And I like Botswana. I tend to like these countries. I see a lot. I'm just very interested in these countries. I see a lot of beauty in these countries. Now, African Americans, typically when we think of beautiful Africans, we tend to go to Ethiopia. Okay? But the Ethiopians are mixed people, and they kind of look like this girl here. Okay? She's mixed. She's most likely mixed with Arabic. If you've looked at the DNA, Ancestry DNA results, you'll see that a lot of Ethiopians are mixed with Arabic, and some of them are up to 50% or more Arabic blood than they are African, and that's why they look that way. So what you're seeing on your screen is Kenya, representative of Kenya. These are beautiful Kenyan people, and I had to. She's kind of pale. I think she's bleaching. But I had to look at Africans and get used to looking at Africans the same way I got used to looking at Asians. And once I looked at them enough, and once I got used to the features and I got used to the faces, and I started to see something else. I started to change. And this is what happens with everyone once they're exposed to something new. In one of my last videos, I mentioned that by beholding, you become changed. Okay, by looking at things, by listening to things, you become changed. You find yourself changing. Your tastes become different. Okay, so I'm looking at these people, and these are beautiful people. Okay, beautiful African people. Okay, all of them. All right. She's pretty too, but she's not my type per se. And okay, you start to see beauty in the different races. You see beauty. Look at her eyes, beautiful. Her face, her lips, beautiful. Okay, you see beauty in people. So, here's Lupita Nyong'o, who's from Kenya. She's a beautiful woman too. I don't particularly like the boy haircut, but doesn't take away from the fact that she's beautiful. Okay, so we see the beauty. All right, so I want to show you some other pictures of beautiful Africans. Let me take you to a website. So this, I had this page loaded and ready to go, and look what happened. Okay, so let me see if I can show you a little bit of what I was looking at on this page. See if I can close this out. Okay, so okay, I'm gonna have to skip that for now. I apologize, but let me show you the Fulani people. These people are, I believe, in Nigeria and different places, and I just want you to look at the features, okay? Look at the eyes, look at the faces. Some of them may have similarities to African Americans because African Americans, a lot of us have Nigerian blood. So a lot of us, these are our living ancestors, okay? I'm part Nigerian, I found out recently. And yeah, some of these people in these tribes, the Fulani people, could be related to me. I think she's beautiful. Okay. And it's a cute little kid here. Handsome little boy. Okay. And these are beautiful people. These are African people. And you look at her. Check her out here. Very, very beautiful. Okay, so even with her face paintings, she's very, very beautiful. So these are the Fulani. So, just spending some time on the website, just spending some time looking at the people, looking at their features, you find an appreciation for them. Okay? And it starts to change you. So I'm encouraging you to, if you're African American, if you're Black, just spend time looking at African media. Spend time looking at Black businesses and the beautiful people within Black culture, within the Black cultures around the world. Spend time looking at that, because it's going to change your perception. I came across this recently. I saw this. Someone was posting something about Red Star Collection. This is an African American designer, I guess, swimsuit line, and they have some of the most exotic looking, beautiful people listed, selling their products on this website. So you just spend time, you look at the natural hair here on the right, you look and you get used to it, and you and you start to appreciate it for what it is. Because as a black person, this is what you're supposed to like. This is normal. Okay? I spent a lot of time discussing abnormality, but it's normal to be attracted to this, to hair like this, because this is your hair. It's abnormal or dysfunctional to not be attracted to this, or not be attracted to these women as an African American man. This is why, I consider it an abnormality for for black American men to say they hate black women and they don't date black women at all. That's just crazy. You have to be insane to look at this, okay? To look at this and to say you hate this. This is who you are. I really wish I could take a look at this Facebook page. Let me see if I can. Actually, the picture's down below here. Let me show you one last picture, and then I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up. But getting used to the features that are in black cultures, African features, it takes. This Facebook page is beautiful Rwandan people. All right, let's take a look at these people here. Beautiful, beautiful African women. Okay? Straight from Rwanda, straight from an African country. That's the president of the country. Okay? And you can see the differences between Rwandans and other Africans. Look at how she looks. Totally different. You don't see people like this in African America because they're of a different tribe. We're West African. These are East African people. Okay, there was a picture I wanted to show you. It's not showing up, but I'm gonna give it one more try here. See if I can locate this picture. Ah, there it is. Wow. There you go. She looks a little bit like Sine Latham, but she's Rwandan. And look at the hair, beautiful. Okay, this is beautiful. If you don't see this as beautiful, if you don't see the hair as beautiful, you've been programmed and you need to deprogram yourself. This is beautiful. Okay. I've already deprogrammed myself and I can see it for what it is. I can see it for how God made it to be. If you as a black person can look at this and say this is ugly, something's wrong with you. Anyway, this is Common Denominator, learning to appreciate and to love African features.